I think every girl who's not married and say they're past 25, 28, whatever, I think they can all look back and every one of them has a relationship that happened at 22 that could have been something serious, that could have been um, their husband, but they decided to, nah, I got to do this. I got to go to the school. They put it off. Maybe that caused some strain in the relationship. Who knows? But and maybe this is just hindsight is 2020, and people look back, and I think a lot of people have that relationship at 22 or around that age where they're like, oh, that was a great person, that could have been the one. And I see sometimes I see that kind of regret in girls. I think there's a little bit of a kind of like a naiveness going on about age for women, thinking like that they're just as desirable later on. It doesn't matter at 22 or 30 or whatever. I can attract the same guy. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on that, but what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know if I would completely agree with that. I think maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's one reason why some women might walk away from a relationship when they're younger, but a lot of the reasons is for whatever circumstance or reason, the relationship itself doesn't work out, whether it wasn't with the right person, it wasn't the right time when they're both mature and ready for that next step. It's very rare that I see either friends or even I coach a lot of clients who are looking for relationship coaching, where they, said, I've met someone when I was younger, they had everything, but I walked away because of my career or because I wanted to focus on something else. I think there's a lot of other factors that were missing at that time. And it really could be for multiple reasons.
But just to that point of, I don't think enough girls realize that you're most desirable to a guy, and I'm just talking like on a very like, human based level around the ages of like 22 to 25. And so when a woman doesn't really take advantage of those years, thinking, I'm going to be this desirable, even in my late 20s and even up till 30. What I notice happening is that, they've added that job, they've added whatever to their CV, the credentials, but those aren't things guys really care about. That I think maybe women have been misled into thinking are important to guys. But I think, guys would date a barista or a girl who has like 4 PhDs. I don't think it really matters too much for guys. Do you think that's something that kind of young women need to, wake up about, that, like,
Yeah.
just be real, like and when they get to that age, and they're like 28, right, and they have a solid career and they have whatever, what happens at that time? They've now just raised their standard of men that they want tenfold, because by nature, I think girls always want to date up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Guy who earns a little bit more, maybe he's a little more refined or prestigious, or his status is a little higher just by nature. Okay, so you've added all this quote unquote value to yourself, and now you want a guy who's even higher value than you a little bit. And but you've kind of taken yourself out of the market, because those guys who are super high value, you're a lawyer, you want a guy who's a lawyer but earning more. That guy's kind of got the pick of the litter, right? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? It's a touchy subject. I know no one talks about it in our community, but this is kind of a topic that's been trending recently on YouTube and stuff, with people like Kevin Samuels. I don't know if you've heard of him. There's kind of a whole movement going on right now in the manosphere, quote unquote, where these guys are talking about these topics related to females. And this is just from a really base perspective, not taking into account things like personality and whatever. Of course, those are important X factors, but if we're just talking like kind of like scientists here,
Okay.
I really think that girls really need to kind of take advantage of those early years. If they can, if the right person doesn't come around, they don't come around, you know?
Yeah, well, I think that's the key, right? If the right person has come around, but I don't think we should ever put like a deadline or pressure, because there's already enough pressure in society, especially in our culture, in the Egyptian culture of like, all right, come on, when are you getting married? You know, you need to hurry up a bit. And I think that kind of thinking is a little bit flawed, especially if we're telling them like, listen, you're not going to be as valuable, you're not going to be as desirable later. We all know people that have gotten married later on in life in their 30s or even later, and that was the right time for them. You know, I don't think we can put a time limit on God's timing for us either, right? And just giving them that window of like 22 to 25, that's a bit much. You know, that's a little bit.
I'm just saying, take advantage of those years, because look, girls get approached in those years, but what happens is like they're just turning those guys away, partially because they want to prioritize their career and etc., and they think they'll get a better guy later. But also, and this is a whole nother thing I want to get into, is like I think women's standards are just simply unreasonable today. And part of the reason for that is the way society has changed. Women don't really need men for survival in the way that they used to. And I mean survival in kind of like the most like historical sense, like protection, provision. No, I mean, a girl can take care of herself. She can get a job. There's police to protect her, you know, gated community. Doesn't really need a man. So that kind of survival instinct that would kick in earlier when women are younger, to find a man who can protect them, provide for them, and then obviously to have children with. That kind of is, I don't want to say it's been eliminated, but that need has been drastically reduced. Okay, so when that need is drastically reduced, that pressure is not on, right? So I do think that age is actually, I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, I think they should feel that kind of pressure early on, because you're going to feel it later at some points, right? You don't want to feel it later because it's going to be harder later.
And you know, that's assuming that marriage isn't everybody's future, right? And we know that obviously it's not for everybody, whether some people choose singleness and like a life of service by choice, or it just, you know, doesn't happen for them and it's a desire they have and it's something they're praying about, but maybe God hasn't answered it, or you know, it's not the life that they have for them, you know, coming up. And you know, I know many young women and older women, and I think if they did find that person that they were looking for at a young age, I don't think they would, you know, push them away just because they want to focus on their careers. You know, working women are working women when they're dating, when they're engaged, when they're married, when they're moms, when they're juggling everything all at once, you know, and I give them a lot of credit for being able to do that. It's not how society has always been, and I think it's much harder to try to juggle all of that together. You know, but another thing that I wanted to also kind of point out is, you know, maybe women too are not ready at that point. So I don't want to settle and, you know, get somebody to be in a committed relationship with me if I'm not like emotionally healed, if I'm working on past things, if I'm working on things on myself that I know would be detrimental to a relationship. That's not a healthy mindset to go into it. You know, I think I have a blog post. Actually, I have a blog that has a lot of relationship topics. I think there's like 15 out of the current 50 right now that are all on relationships. And I say, you know, you have to have two loves first that are really important before you dive into that third love, which is the true love that everybody, you know, is looking for. And that's God's love, understanding, you know, who he is, and having a relationship with him, because that's the foundation to any successful relationship. You know, I'm not just looking at the world standards, but I'm looking at the Christian standards that we're told to live by. And that's super important. We can't do anything that we're commanded in the Bible, how to be a submissive wife, a respectful wife, if we don't understand what that means in the bigger picture, like with God. You know, same thing for the guys as well. They can't be a sacrificial husband, a husband that loves the same way Christ loved the church to the point of death. They don't understand who God is and how he did that. And then the second love is self-love. I need to know who I am in Christ. I'm not looking for somebody to fill a hole in me, to fill my insecurities, to add things to me that I'm missing. I'm really complete on my own in God himself. And then that, you know, other person is there to help me to, you know, reach the kingdom, because that's the whole point of relationships and marriage, to help one another reach salvation. And that's not an easy walk whatsoever. So that's why you really have to have that strong foundation first before you bring someone else into the picture. And, you know, maybe not everybody has that figured out at 22 or 25, and it's an ongoing thing as well. It's not something that stops once you get married.